They do that with rows of petunias, and it's really cool. It's kind of like a test garden, I guess, is kind of what I would think. There's a new place that we learned about, Low Garden, I believe it's called, up by Linmar School, just north of there. The Master Gardeners in the Cedar Rapids area, it's their garden. And it's, oh man, it's really nice. They've done a lot there. Learned about them when we went to the Bruce Moore Art and Garden Show. And the Master Gardeners were there in force. Oh my gosh. So I'm assuming this is an every year thing that they have in like the end of August. It was the end of August when we went, wasn't it? So you might want to look for that, because they've got beautiful gardens there. And people will tell you lots of stuff there too. You can pick their brains, and they have a lot of information available. And of course you can go anywhere. I mean, everywhere there's arboretums, there's botanical gardens, and you can see what they are, and you can also do it from the comfort of your home. On Iowa Public on Wednesdays is called Garden Smart. It's on at 10 o'clock and at 4 o'clock, same show. And they go to different gardens, and they always try to say something that helps the home gardener. But you get to see some magnificent gardens, and there's a lot of tips. A lot of tips they give. One day, a lady her expertise is pots. She had pots that were probably this tall, had evergreens in them.
What day did you say that was?
It's on Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday from at 10 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Of course, then you can't watch Jeopardy. Anybody have any other questions?
Is there any kind of a bush that would be good in hot sun all day long in the summer, that would bloom all summer long into fall?
Not that I'm aware of. There's some spireas, like I mentioned, they have colors, different times of the year, and so it's not truly blooming that time. But they have their blooms and then their color of their leaves, and the leaves turn different colors. See, we all want something to bloom forever, and if you want something to bloom all summer long, you've got to have annuals. There's no other way. Yeah, petunias, I mean, you know, there's all of those. And that's perfectly fine. If you want to plant those, a lot of things I plant the seeds, so that helps me. I don't have to spend a lot of money. But one year, I think I spent $100 on impatiens. All across this 100-plus bed. I thought, oh, I don't think I want to do that again.
Well, hydrangeas bloom pretty much all summer.
The which?
Hydrangeas.
They bloom for a long time.
If you give them the bloom. And I don't, do they like sun?
Yeah, well, yours does.
Well, yeah, around the bottom.
But, well, we found out, though, I called up to the extension, because Mary Ellen and I both have a hydrangea that's only blooming at the bottom.
Huh.
And we said, why? Well, we thought you had said you'd been cutting it off every year, so we've been cutting it off. Well, you're not supposed to do that. Let it come back on, some of it will come back on the old stalks. Well, they sure look dry when we cut them off, but we're sure going to try this next year to see if that will make a difference. But supposedly,
best.
Yeah, and I cut it off.
and a lot of,
I have hydrangeas that are like that.
and there's some that you can do that too, and some you can't.
Yeah, and I cut them off in the fall when they're
Yep.
done.
Yep.
And then they're pretty dry.
Are they white? Are they the white
They're
ones?
white,
Yeah.
and they kind of turn pink and then a kind of pretty brown color, but
They are
Oh,
beautiful.
they're just awesome.
and they're so heavy that I have a fence around them because, you know, but there's one that sticks up this big and at my kitchen window I can see it and I think it's somebody peeking. I'll go behind, there's a big flower.
Hydrangeas and clematis, it depends on the variety, whether you cut them off in the fall or spring or not, or you let them come on the. And that's where the Hort line down at Iowa State, forgive me anybody who's a Hawkeye fan here, but they're the specialists down there, and you can send pictures, you can send the plant, you can take them down there, and they will help you to figure out what you should be doing with your plant. I can't, there's too many of them, I can't keep track of it. But I know there's some you can cut and some you can't. Yeah.
I was just gonna comment that I planted some potentillas when we moved here, and I changed the soil from where we live, you know, I bought some bag soil, and they bloom pretty much all
Yes,
summer
that's
steady.
true. Potentillas do bloom quite a bit in the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've
that's
really done
right.
well here, and I couldn't believe it, because when we lived in Idaho, it's dry, and that's native out there, but I decided to try them here, and they've been doing pretty well.
And there's yellow ones and white ones.
Mm-hmm.
But don't
There's
put them
some
in the
pink-
shade,
some
they don't
pink
do as
too.
well in the shade. They
Some
need the
pink
sun.
Yeah, they do need sun.
So I kind of forgotten about those because mine are in the shade. And they don't,
Yeah.
so I need to move them and find something else. Great idea.
Do you have Japanese lanterns?
No, but my daughter does, and she says they're invasive.
They are, they
They
move,
just-
they migrate.
They-
I must have dug one up because I brought a hosta, and then they were all in my hostas, you know, I was pulling them out, the ones that didn't have lantern. And they migrate, because the root system was just
Is it a root system it goes
And
by?
so I had a cluster of them like this year. Yeah, so I don't know where they're gonna be next year.
Well, plants that do that, like mint. Mint is another one that's really bad. Is you gotta put them in a container. You can put the container down in the ground, but you've gotta do something so they can't get out.
And the roots stay.
The roots stay in that container. And it has to have a bottom in it because they'll go down to get out because they want to spread their wings. So those are two things that I know of that you have to put boundaries on. You just, otherwise you got them all over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, they can spread, but if I don't want them someplace, I just yank them out.
They aren't too hard to pull out,
No.
even with the
But
roots.
you can see the roots, well, you don't get the whole root,
So-
you get part of it.
Yeah, so you'll still have flowers there next year then.
Maybe. Kevin doesn't spray there.
Well, my daughter's husband did. He said, "There's enough of this, you don't need this." And also you can think of the color of flowers. Some people like to have a white flower bed. And I don't know if you've ever seen that. Sometimes you'll see them in these arboretums or botanical gardens and stuff. But that's really cool because then at night you see them glowing in the dark. And so that's something that's kind of nice to have around your patio if you're doing entertaining. And then you have flowers that are kind of glowing in the dark in the evening.
It's pretty with the green leaves too.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to plant white flowers in my garden because I have a white house and I thought, well, they wouldn't show up. But I've discovered they really haven't done, they've done well. They show up and it's really nice.
I'm so sorry.
Anybody have any other questions? I mean, we could go on and we could get real detailed about this, but if you have any questions, you know, please feel free to give me a call. My number is not in the book though, but if you take one of my cards.
I just wanted to make a comment about, I've tried a lot of different kinds of shrubs that fit different places, and I hang along the years. Finally I don't like to trim, I like to see natural growth. So I've started using a lot of dwarf things that are really fit really better in the spot. You don't have to mess with them, you don't have to cut them.
Excellent.
And there's a lot that I didn't know about.
Yeah, there's a lot of dwarf ones and, is it miniature? There's two different words they've used.
Yeah.
But you have to remember too, is how far do you plant them apart? Because if you don't look at the thing and it says their spread is, let's say 4 feet, well, all right, spread is the whole thing, so at the trunk, it's 2 feet over here. Then the next guy, if he's got a spread of 4 feet,
Yeah.
you can't go any more than the 4 feet between them. And if you want to have room for them to do their own thing, you gotta even leave them a little further out. And actually, if you go to Dysart, they put in a garden over there and a gazebo in their park, and it looks real sparse. And you have to, if you're planting stuff, you gotta put up with that. Because, or else you're gonna take something out. I mean, you have your choice. But if you don't wanna have a lot of work, you do get that little plant and give it its room. Put this one here and let it have its room. And that way, it saves you work. And unless you want a garden like mine, where they're all packed in.
There's a nursery in St. Paul. Gertens is the name of it. And they have a great website. And you go in there and they have write-ups on every shrub that you can think of, and it tells you the planting, and if they grow up there,
They'll grow
they're
down
gonna
here.
grow here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing you really want to watch, because there's plants that are put out down here in the box stores,
Yep.
and they will not survive here. They'll say they're perennials, but if they are not at least say a 4, I wouldn't plant them. Because 5s, you gotta have a special place where the sun or wind doesn't get at them, and you gotta kind of baby them. And sure, sometimes they'll grow, but much of the time they don't. What was the name of that place? Do you remember how you spell it?
Yeah, Gertens.
G-E-R-E-N-S?
It's a huge place.
T-E-N,
Tens.
G-E-R-T-E-N, apostrophe S.
Yeah.
Curtains.
And they are right in, well, they used to be clear at the edge of St. Paul. Now St. Paul's put up around it. And they have better than 100 acres there of their own ground that they
Yeah.
grow stuff on.
Oh, wow.
And then you can go up there and you spend hours looking through that stuff. Yeah, it's a really neat place to go.
There's a hosta leaf that's over toward Dubuque that they have unbelievable number of hostas there. Whoops. We've been there several times. They give you, when you come in, there's about 6 sheets of paper, both sides, printed, typed, of all the different varieties you can buy there.
Yeah.
And then you can go around and you look and see what they've got and how they grow. And then you for check marks what you want, which hard to not have very many, but, and then you go out and they have them in there. Some of them are potted, most of them are out in the field. They just go out and dig them out of the field. You get a nice clump of them.
Yeah.
It's a great place to get, but there's so many places now that have flowers. Oh, it's just amazing.
I have hibiscus seeds if anybody's interested.
Oh, what color are your hibiscus?
Red and cake and white.
Oh, wow.
And I got the seeds at the Dubuque Arboretum.
Oh,
And there were no directions, just came in a little brown paper bag. And I thought, now what do I do? So I planted them in a row like I would peas. And they came up, and that's been 20 years ago,
did you plant them in the fall or in the spring?
in the spring.
In the spring. Because I was told by somebody who's much more knowledgeable than I that you need to let them overwinter outside. They need, because some seeds do need that, some don't. And so it's interesting to hear that yours made it, didn't have
And I cut them down every fall because they grow huge. But they're really full and
Ooh,
big in the fall.
cool. That's another plant that does last a long time. Your Rose of Sharon, they last a long time. There's a lot of perennials that do last quite a while. It's just they don't last, the whole summer and the whole spring or whatever.
When you talk about fertilizer, what are you using? A little of everything?
You won't like to hear what I have to say.
We know.
We have wonderful soil, and I do very little fertilizing.
Really?
Yeah. I just feel we're blessed in this. This is like the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And so people won't like to hear that. I do use preen in some places, but I can't because a lot of mine are seeds that I have to wait for them to sprout. So until they're big enough to tell what's what, I'm going to have to weed. But I also like what I have, so that's the way it is. But there is one thing, after you've got all your flowers planted and all, is what do you do with the ground around them? And there's many, many thoughts to that. Some people like to put that fabric down and then they put stones on top of it or they put mulch on top of it. They look real nice, but they will stop the seeds, the weeds that are coming from the bottom. But anything that floats in will still start growing. So you are not weed-free. You may be for a short time, but you will not be weed-free. There really is no perfect way to be weed-free. You just have to kind of see what works the best for you. I find that moving those rocks, if you want to plant something else, can be a real pain and a lot of work. And a lot of people that have built homes and they've had somebody come in and they have a plant this big and they maybe put it in a hole like this, not thinking that that plant is going to grow. I took over an hour to dig out a hosta out of a bed like that, one hosta. Trying to, because the roots go into the fabric and they go into the rocks and you can't get underneath it. And I about wore a pair of gloves and wrecked a shovel trying to get that darn hosta out of there. So you always have to think, no matter what you're planting, trees, shrubs, plants, you got to think expansion. And perennials will take preen. Preen is a pre-emergent, so it kills the seeds before they germinate. So if you put your plant in there, then put preen around that, then that'll help stop that. But it's not perfect because if those seeds already started to germinate, you know, you're not going to get that one. But you know, you really limit the amount of weeds you have. And they say that preen lasts about 2 to 3 months. So even now is a good time to put it on to help kill those germinating fall weeds that you'll have in the spring.
To put it in reverse, when you have a shrub, a bush that you want to get rid of, short of having it pulled out, cutting it off, and what do you do to it, or how can you get rid of it?
Well, I use what my husband used on stuff out in the field along the fence rows. It's called Tordon. And you just cut it, like this is your weed. You cut it there, or those mulberry trees that are growing everywhere, and you only put it on where the flesh has been cut. You don't put it down around the roots, you don't, only on the freshly cut piece. And that's, kills them.
And is that
Yeah,
spelled T-O-R-D-O-N?
I think so, I think it's T-O-R-D-O-n.
What?
T-O-R-D-O-n, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And it comes in, it's a little squeeze bottle, so I mean, you can't put too much on.
You can pick it up at flower shops, but Liquid Girl has it out here too.
And we get it at our co-op in Geyser. But it's powerful stuff. You wear rubber gloves when you're, you know, good heavy gloves when you're using it.
Does it hurt iris to put preen right on?
Not at all, because they're perennial.
Yeah.
And they spread by roots. And so anything that spreads by roots is not going to be affected by preen. And I think you got to go a little heavier than what it shows on the
So
package.
do I. Yeah.
I think that's not enough. But you can also put newspapers down. In my flower or my vegetable garden, my husband shreds paper. He's obsessive compulsive about it. If I surely don't want something, I better make sure when I put it in that bin because it's gone. But it works great under my vegetables. My beans are nice and clean, and cucumbers and everything that's out there. And it forms a mulch, and there's very few weeds that come through, and it's real easy to just pick them out. And so, personally, I like that.
He shreds it.
Yeah, he shreds it. But you can put newspaper down if you want to. Some people put cardboard down. You know, there's lots of different thoughts out there.
I heard about, just laying paper down, but I didn't know about it.
I think with the shredding, it kind of forms a mat. If you put just newspaper out, I've heard you have to put something on so it'll stay there. Although if you put it out wet, that helps. Because then it'll form more of a mat. Because actually at the church, I put wet newspaper down and then the mulch on top of it. And I didn't dig out the...
bag for you.
Oh, thank you. And I didn't dig out the grass or kill the grass. So you'll see how, that's my experiment.
If you guys haven't been past the Presbyterian Church on the south side, between the double doors and where it jogs out,
Little corner section.
in the corner there, Donna planted some things there, and it is beautiful. She was so great.
Well, I'm going to close with this little article I found the other day. I am, as my husband so fondly puts it, a control freak. That is me. I try not to be, really I do. But the truth is, I feel naked without a list in my hand, or at least somewhere within an arm's reach. Small surprise that when I began my garden, I began with a list. In fact, my garden plans were so elaborate and detailed that I really believed I had covered every possible facet of performance, charting each plant's ultimate size, color, bloom time, and light, soil and moisture requirements. I expected nothing less than an utterly perfect display of successive waves of color all summer and spring, all spring and summer long. The first sign of rebellion was among the alliums. I had planted 3 lavender Globemaster alliums, those are great big purple ones, which were supposed to provide an artistic counterpoint to the yellow Asiatic lilies, sort of like fat, whimsical lollipops next to the daisies, or to the lilies' classic beauty. Except the alliums bloomed in May and the lilies didn't bloom until June. Okay, this was simply poor research on my part. No doubt everything else would be just as I had planned. Then the Alaska Shasta daisies, oh, they bloom a long time. They're good ones to bloom in the summer. Growing fully 39 inches tall and crowding a number of plants nearby. They were supposed to be a demure 20 inches, flirting beyond the daylilies. To add insult to injury, the first good rain, they flopped over on their neighbors like drunken lushes. I staked them up and rebuked them thoroughly, but I don't think they heard me. All the roses got black spot in late June and lost their leaves. It looked as if I were trying to grow sticks instead of roses. The oriental lilies, which weren't supposed to bloom until August, spent themselves in one glorious 2-week period in early July, thwarting my plan for them to bloom with the white phlox. Meanwhile, the lamb's ears spent the summer quietly overtaking a much larger plot of earth than they'd been allowed. My gardening books hadn't mentioned that this softest of plants had expansionist ideas. The sunny border blue veronicas started leaning like the Tower of Pisa for no discernible reason. One of the Carpathian harebells spontaneously died. Rabbits ate the moonbeam coreopsis, and my Siberian iris went on strike, refusing to bloom at all. My careful plans, my little circles on paper, my graphic depictions of bloom times were utterly abandoned as I tried to keep up with the chaos occurring in my garden. I staked, I tied, I watered and fertilized, and withheld fertilizer on some, all in an effort to contain things. And when none of that worked, I fell back on my tried and true method of making things happen. I went out and glared at the plants for what it was worth. I don't have any data to prove the effectiveness of this, but it feels like it works. Then one day I had a revelation. As some visiting friends were getting out of their car, they said, "Wow, the flowers look great." I was struck dumb with amazement. I looked where they looked, saw what they saw, and they were right. It did look great. Not perfect, but pretty darn good. I've learned I can't control my garden. It will forever be my strong-willed child, defying my attempts at military organization, order, and timeliness. It will be rumpled, unruly, and sassy as all get out. But there is so much beauty in its independence, so much unexpected pleasure in its waywardness, that I can hardly complain. I can't possibly give up planting. It's like breathing to me, but I know now that even if nothing in my garden goes according to plan, it will still be pretty wonderful. So I hope you all have very nice gardens. Enjoy. There is also, and I forgot to tell you, an app on your cell phones if you have those smartphones. I think it's called My Garden. And it's about garden plants identification. It's a free app that you can get, and you take a picture if the wind's not blowing, and then they can tell you what it is.
Maybe you could do that with that shrub, or that flower in your garden.
That could be it.
You know your flowers so well.
What number, growing numbers, which numbers work best For this
Zone.
area.
Zone.
So,
Zone.
yeah.
4, 3, 2, 4, yeah, you just don't want 5 and over. Yeah, you can do 3, that's what they do in Minnesota, you know? Yeah, if it'll, like Ned said, if it grows in Minnesota, it'll grow down here. We just can't have the, well, one thing we do need to do sometimes is put a little mulch on some plants. Like mums, sometimes they can use a mulch after it's froze, after the ground is solid. If you put a little mulch on, that can help them, they say.
What do you put on
Unfortunately,
your roses when
I have roses that don't need to do anything, so I can't say. Different people swear by the cones, some people swear by wire and hay or whatever. To me, the best thing is to buy a rose that grows in Canada. Or the buck roses that was found in the state that Mr. Buck, what's the word they use, that he designed them. So they would be tolerant to our climate and not have to be babied. So those are the best ones to get, unless you want to spend a lot of time, and that's where the thing is, how much time do you want to spend with your stuff, with flowers?